You won't believe what happened one late night when a certain HOA Karen decided to come knocking on my door right at midnight. It started off as just a typical, quiet night, but things quickly took a wild turn I never saw coming. She showed up, banging on my door like she owned the place, demanding answers, acting like she was in charge of everything around here. Little did she know, the situation was about to flip on her in a way no one expected. Now, if you've ever dealt with a neighborhood HOA, you know how intense things can get. People who think they have authority over every little thing, trying to control your life, your property, and even your time. That's exactly what this Karen was doing, playing the neighborhood sheriff, ready to call the cops at the drop of a hat. But here's the twist. I actually own way more than just my house. The whole county, actually. And that fact, well, it's something she definitely didn't expect. I want to take you through the whole story, the late-night confrontation, the crazy calls to 911, and the moment when she realized she'd bitten off way more than she could chew. It's a tale about boundaries, power, and standing your ground when someone tries to bully you. There's a lot to unpack here about neighborhood drama, the power of ownership, and what happens when someone crosses the line. But I'm not going to spoil it all right now. The night ended with a shocking cliffhanger, something that left us both stunned and set the stage for what came next. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for the next part, because this story is just getting started, and it's only going to get crazier from here. The night before all this happened, things seemed perfectly normal. I had just settled in after a long day, ready to unwind and enjoy the quiet of my property. This isn't just any neighborhood. My land stretches far beyond the usual streets and houses you'd expect. Owning an entire county means I've dealt with my fair share of issues, but nothing quite like what was about to unfold. The HOA, usually busy with their petty rules and complaints, had never crossed into my domain like this before. Karen, the self-appointed enforcer of neighborhood rules, has a reputation. People whisper about her constant complaints, the way she always thinks she's right no matter the situation. She's the kind of person who loves to stir trouble and pull rank, even when she has no real authority. I figured her midnight visit was just another episode in her ongoing campaign to control everything. But this time, she was about to learn a hard lesson. What made it worse was the timing. Midnight. There's something unsettling about someone banging on your door in the dead of night, especially when you know you haven't done anything wrong. I could feel the tension rising as I went to the door, wondering if this was some kind of prank or if Karen really was about to make a scene. And then, when she called 911, things escalated in a way I never expected. The police showed up, but they were quickly caught between Karen's complaints and the truth about my property rights. This wasn't just about a noisy knock or a simple misunderstanding. It was about power, control, and boundaries. The kind of conflict that makes you question who really owns what and who gets to decide what happens on your land. As the night wore on, the situation grew more intense, with voices raised and tempers flaring. But the most surprising part? How Karen reacted when she found out the full story about the county, and just how much control I actually have. What happened next changed everything, but I'm not quite ready to tell you yet. The story is far from over, and the fallout from that night is something you won't want to miss. What made this whole ordeal even more complicated was how the neighborhood started reacting afterward. Karen's midnight visit wasn't just an isolated event. It sparked conversations and stirred up old tensions no one really wanted to face. People began picking sides, some supporting Karen's strict enforcement of the HOA rules, while others quietly wondered if maybe she had taken things way too far this time. I found myself caught in the middle of it all, trying to keep things calm while the drama unfolded. One angle that kept coming back was the misunderstanding about property lines and who had what rights. The HOA has rules for homeowners, but they don't apply when someone owns the land beyond the regular plots, like owning an entire county. Many neighbors didn't know this, and Karen definitely didn't expect it. It was clear she saw me as just another resident to boss around, but I was running a whole different game. That gap in knowledge added fuel to the fire, making the conflict about more than just a late-night noise complaint. On top of that, the police involvement complicated things even more. When they arrived after Karen's 911 call, they had to figure out what was real and what was just neighborhood drama blown out of proportion. The officers were polite but cautious, aware that this wasn't your everyday dispute. Their presence raised questions about authority and jurisdiction. Who really has control when a property owner's rights clash with HOA enforcement? Meanwhile, Karen's reaction after learning about the full extent of my ownership only made things more intense. Her confidence faded, but instead of backing down, she seemed determined to find new ways to challenge me. It became clear this wouldn't end with just one confrontation. Beneath the surface was a deeper battle over respect, control, and identity within the community. The story was no longer just about one night or one angry knock. It was about the struggle over who truly holds power in this neighborhood, and what happens when those lines get blurred. And believe me, the next chapter gets even more surprising as days passed. The tension in the neighborhood didn't just simmer, it boiled over. Karen's actions had stirred up a storm far bigger than a midnight door knock. She started showing up unannounced more often, knocking on doors, trying to rally other residents to her side. It felt less like keeping order and more like she was on a personal mission to prove something. The irony was thick, considering she had no idea about the full extent of my property rights. Each encounter became more heated, and it was clear. This wasn't just about rules anymore, it was about control, pride, and who had the final say. I tried to stay calm and collected, but it wasn't easy. The community was divided, whispers and speculations swirling everywhere. Some neighbors quietly respected the fact I owned the whole county, while others sided with Karen, fearing that unchecked power meant chaos. The HOA meetings grew tenser, with Karen pushing to tighten rules, hoping to regain whatever authority she felt slipping away. Meanwhile, I was preparing to stand my ground, knowing that this fight was about more than just a single dispute, was about setting boundaries, and making it clear that respect has to go both ways. One evening, the situation reached a boiling point. Karen came back again, this time more aggressive, banging on my door like she was trying to break it down. The neighborhood was watching, some hidden behind curtains, others gathered nearby. Her voice was loud, demanding explanations and threatening. More calls to 911. I knew the police were probably already on their way, thanks to her earlier threats. The air was thick with anticipation, neighbors holding their breath, waiting to see how this showdown would unfold. Everything was about to come to a head. The question hanging over us all: would Karen finally back down or push this conflict beyond any limits? The next moments would decide the future of the neighborhood and the balance of power. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more intense, the story took a surprising turn that no one saw coming. Right in the middle of Karen's loud confrontation at my door, a car pulled up quietly behind her, one I hadn't expected. It was someone from the county office, someone who had been investigating some of the very land issues Karen was so obsessed about. Apparently, rumors had been swirling about questionable dealings related to the HOA and some nearby properties, and this person was there to look into it. Suddenly, the focus shifted. Karen's bravado faltered as she realized this wasn't just about me or the midnight knock anymore. There were bigger things at play, things that connected her behavior to something deeper, something that could unravel everything she'd been trying to control. The county officials started asking questions, pulling out papers and maps. revealing that some of the land the HOA claimed to oversee might not be as theirs as they believed. The stakes just shot up from a neighborhood dispute to a potential legal battle with far-reaching consequences. Neighbors who'd been on the fence started paying closer attention. The whispers turned into full conversations about ownership, rights, and the true power dynamics in the community. Karen, now visibly rattled, tried to regain control but was clearly shaken by this new development. The tension wasn't just about a knock on the door anymore. It was about secrets being uncovered and the real story behind the HOA's influence. As the night dragged on, it became clear that the midnight incident was only the tip of the iceberg. What started as a simple conflict had spiraled into something much bigger, with everyone wondering what would happen next. Would Karen's grip on the neighborhood weaken, or would she fight harder to keep her power, even if it meant risking everything? The answers were coming, but not yet. The real climax was just around the corner, and it promised to change everything. The tension reached its peak when the county official laid out the facts in front of everyone. Proof that a significant portion of the land Karen's HOA claimed to control actually belonged to me. The documents were clear, showing deeds and ownership records that no one had questioned until now. Karen's face went pale, her confidence crumbling as the reality hit her. The police, who had arrived just in time, listened carefully, realizing this wasn't a typical HOA complaint, but a complex property dispute. The neighbors watched in stunned silence, many shifting from skepticism to surprise. I took a deep breath and calmly explained how owning the entire county gave me legal authority that far surpassed any HOA rules. It wasn't about power for MIT. It was about respect and knowing where boundaries truly lie. Karen's attempts to bully and control suddenly felt small in comparison to the weight of real ownership and rights. The crowd slowly started to understand that this midnight confrontation was more than just a personal spat. It was about the foundations of the community itself. Just when it seemed the conflict had been resolved, the final twist hit. The county official revealed something unexpected. There was an old forgotten clause buried deep in the property records. It suggested that the land ownership was still under review due to a pending legal challenge from a third party. This meant that while I currently held the rights, the entire situation could shift dramatically depending on the court's decision. Karen, who had been ready to back down, suddenly found new hope to continue her fight, though now it was clear. The battle wasn't just between neighbors, it was part of a much bigger legal war. The neighborhood held its breath, knowing this story was far from over. What started with a midnight knock had opened a door to a deeper conflict with stakes no one could have predicted. And just like that, the quiet county was about to change forever. After the county official dropped the news about the legal challenge, the neighborhood buzz shifted from heated arguments to cautious patience. Everyone realized this was bigger than any of us had imagined. The battle over ownership wasn't just about me or Karen anymore. It was a reminder of how complex property rights can be and how important it is to understand them before jumping to conclusions. Karen, for all her boldness, began to step back. The midnight door banging and 911 calls faded into the background as the community settled into a new reality. She wasn't going to disappear completely, but it was clear this fight was moving beyond her usual HOA battles. Meanwhile, I stayed focused on protecting what was legally mine. Knowing the court's decision could change everything, but confident in my position, what stood out most was how the neighbors reacted. Many who had taken sides found common ground. In the shared uncertainty, it was a moment to reflect on how misunderstandings and assumptions about power can divide people, and how important it is to listen and learn before reacting. The story became less about conflict and more about respect, boundaries, and the real meaning of community. Looking back, The midnight confrontation was a catalyst, a reminder that sometimes what seems like a simple disagreement hides deeper issues beneath the surface. It taught me that knowing your rights and standing firm matters, but so does keeping a level head when tensions rise. The HOA drama turned into a lesson about ownership, authority, a delicate balance we all navigate in our neighborhoods. So, while the final legal chapter is still unwritten, one thing is certain: this county and its people will never be the same. Thanks for sticking with me through this story. If you've ever dealt with tough neighbors, HOA conflicts, or property disputes, you know how quickly things can escalate. Stay tuned for what happens next, and remember, sometimes the biggest battles start with a single knock on the door.